Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Continuity Report for January 11th, 2024. I am Mayor Watt, and I run ohmtown.com, which houses all of the shows that are hosted here on Twitch and YouTube, and the podcasts, and Patreon, and Discord, and TikTok, and Carrier Pigeon, and we do smoke signals, and subscribe to the newsletter. I might have said too many of those things. But anyway, we do a show. We do 6 shows weekly and 1 show daily. And on Saturday, these 3 shows become the weekend edition composite of Non Sequitur News Weekend Edition for Saturday, and then 3 different shows on Sunday. So I hope you subscribe to us here on Twitch and over on YouTube. YouTube houses over 1,700 episodes. We've been doing this. We just started season 4 12 days ago, but we're in a time machine episode for Saturday because, well, it's Sunday. Anyway, that was a hell of a messy intro. Anyway, like I said, I'm Mayor Watt, and along with the Sentient AI, we do a show called The Continuity Report, which is all about entertainment news, and we do 5 articles. These 5 articles, I make up a fake title, and then we talk about it on the other side. We're going to talk about a grim movie, Grimm. Film is Helldivers 2. I thought it was kind of a funny name. Anyway, best nerd movies. Star Wars set a longer time ago from when the other ones started, but it's a younger, or not so far. I'm not sure how this works out. Anyway, and then we're going to talk about under 90-minute movies. Because what's better than 8-minute abs than 7-minute abs? And if you want today's show notes, you can hit !TCR, the Continuity Report, and Omatron will spit the articles out in the order that we're going to go through them, but not particularly popular. It's not popularity based. I might actually add a voting mechanism back to ohmTown, but that'll be coming in 2025. Not immediately, but yeah, I thought that we had it at one time, but voting really didn't play a role in the particular articles because we didn't want like bots or anybody dictating based on popularity what we're going to talk about, because some stuff is interesting that not everybody sees. And so algorithmically, I'm not a big fan of algorithms dictating what you watch or what you check out. In fact, I think it's a hindrance to discovery. So anyway, hello, Sentient AI from the future.
Hello, Mayor Watt, and hello, ohmTown citizens.
I don't know. You know what happens sometimes? And I think that it's like ADD, ADHD. I'm not quite sure. But I don't even know if I did the intro, like if I played the music.
Yes, I don't know at this point because I lost track.
Okay. I'm just going to move on. Anyway, so we really dig Grimm. The fairy tales from, back in the day, like the original ones are really horrific. And then they were quote unquote Disneyfied for certain periods of time, and other people would find the originals and remake them as some horror movie or whatever. But there is apparently now a Grimm movie. Grimm is coming back from the dead, this time in the form of a movie. Peacock is developing a feature-length reboot of the fantasy cop drama, which aired for 6 seasons on NBC from 2011 to 2017. Variety has confirmed it. Josh Berman, the creator of Lifetime's Drop Dead Diva, is writing the Grimm movie. Now,
Interesting.
This thing is 8 years dead or undead.
Yeah, it's quite a lag.
Right. Now, I thought that it was great up until the last two seasons, I'd say. It started deviating from something that was a little more compelling and fun to this really abstract, there's a demon child that blah, blah, blah. Ethan Shanfeld over at Variety.com put the article together. But it was a cop show, and the cop discovered that their lineage was from the Grimm family, and they were essentially demon hunters. The original Grimm fairy tales were gathered by the Grimm brothers all through Germany, Bavaria, I believe, and other areas in that region, gathering up these kind of horror tales from a bygone era, documenting them so that they weren't lost to time. They apparently have recently discovered something like 250 more fairy tales or Grimm's tales in the original language that they're translating and maybe will release at some point, but I haven't heard anything in like a year. So I don't know what's going on with that. But like Cinderella is a horror movie, right? But it's been
Right, but it's
Disneyfied.
been made into like a positive, like a fairy tale
Yeah. And I guess
for
it is in
kids.
some for kids. Yeah. I guess in some way it was a fairy tale, like a positive thing. Don't be like these people, because if you're like Cinderella, then
Right,
everything's
the
okay.
positive people win in the end.
Right. Which, yeah, supposedly. Meanwhile, there's horrific stuff going on around them. So Peacock is developing a feature-length reboot of the fantasy cop drama, which aired for 6 seasons. The I don't know how much they're going to get into this, but the plot and cast of the Grimm movie are kept under wraps. But the original series starred David Giuntoli, as Portland homicide detective Nick Burkhart, who discovers he is a Grimm, a guardian sworn to protect the balance between humanity and the mythological creatures known as Vysen. Or Vessen. Sorry, it's Vessen, not Vysen. Vysen is a beer, but anyway, Vessen.
Maybe that too.
Yeah. Um,
Watch out
so
for those Vesson with Bison.
yeah, they're drunk. Throughout the series, Nick takes on a variety of menacing opponents to help or with help from his wolf-like Vessen buddy Monroe, Silas Weir Mitchell, which is an awesome name for a
A Vesson?
wolf-like, yeah. And his partner, Detective Hank Griffin, Russell Hornsby. So, but what are you going to do when you're read in that there is a supernatural menace that's coming to wipe out humanity? You kind of assist, right? So, at some point, Hank gets read in on what's going on. Anyway, rounding out the ensemble were Bitsy Tulloch, Sasha Royce, Reggie Lee, Bree Turner, Claire Coffey, and yeah, it was a fun show, and you could turn off your brain. But they said that it isn't the first time that they've toyed with reviving Grimm. In 2018, they announced a spin-off series, but apparently that didn't quite happen, right? Build off
Well, that was probably right before the pandemic and a lot of TV production shut down or delayed.
Yeah, I can see how that would kind of die before it could. So, per the network, the spinoff was meant to build off of the mythology of the original series and feature returning fan favorites and new characters. However, the series never made it past development.
I think if they have a lot of the original actors and they have some of the original writing staff, this could be good.
I think they
But
need
it'll be
better world
interesting.
building.
Well, I was going to say, who's the audience on this? Is it the original TV viewers?
No, I think that they need to. They shouldn't riff off of the old. It should be a new Grimm that's charismatic, that has star potential, and it could become another Supernatural.
Right.
but you need those writers constructing the world.
Well, and
The
then you could have multiple movies potentially
Buffy the Vampire
because they'd
Slayer
always have a new
story, something.
demon or something that is involved.
Yep.
Yes.
But I think the downfall for Grimm, at least for me, was first off jumping the shark. They brought in a child into this, and the moment you do that, when there is a historical 5 years without really a child, the moment you jump the shark, it's over and done with, because people are like, I don't want everybody worrying about a child involved being a supernatural whatever too. And on top of it, everything was kept within this small town, which was fine for Buffy, but the world building, it went beyond in Buffy, it went beyond that small town, but only by like proxy. People were brought in and stuff like that. But with Grimm, it was always kept to this tiny little thing. So, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer had Hellmouths, which allowed evil to come forward, kind of a thing.
Right. Well, then that expands your potential stories.
Yeah. And Grimm, it was Wesson or Vesson were, because W is V, but anyway. So Vesson was largely physical embodiments of this what do you want to call it, mythological creatures, right? So they were real. It wasn't just some nebulous evil. And you could have all of that other stuff in there, vampires and werewolves and everything else involved. Yeah, I think it's just time to start over and bring in a new set of actors and do some real world building. But you're going to have to get, and they have to get, I mean, the writers, they're going to have to get the IP of Grimm, which
I think it's in the public domain.
what has
At
been
least in the
published.
original, it is. But
Right. Yeah. The original source material, but somebody
oh,
owns
but do you
that.
mean Grimm from the show?
Well, not just from that show, but from the Grimm's fairy tales and the newer discovery of Grimm's tales, which have never been seen apparently, but their provenance already puts them out of copyright. So but if it's discovered by somebody else and then published, is it a new copyright? Yeah. All right,
I
let's
mean,
keep
it
going.
shouldn't be, but we don't know what they're going to do with it.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested. I really like the supernatural fairy tale kind of stuff. And it would be neat if it was the dark original world building, just like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? It was dark, but it was funny and fun, and you could turn your brain off. But if you knew the historical record of the various players, the mythological vampire and werewolf and all of that, then it makes for fun conversation too. So, sorry. And that's about the Grimm movie, not Helldivers. So let's move on. The next article is over in WarCrafters, and this is Helldivers 2 is getting a film adaptation, even though Starship Troopers already exists. A Helldivers 2 film adaptation is in production. Sony announced at CES 2025 back on January 6th. 5th, 6th. The collaboration between Sony Productions and Sony Pictures doesn't have a release window or any confirmed details other than the fact that it's happening. And PlayStation Productions made the announcement during Sony CES press conference. So, have you seen Starship Troopers?
I don't believe so. So I don't know the connection other than it must be kind of a similar story or premise.
It is, yeah.
But I mean, that's never stopped films before, right? I
Sure.
mean, we've seen multiple fill in the blank, like a disaster or alien invasion or whatever, and they can be done as long as they're not exact duplicates.
What's really interesting, though, is that Helldivers 2 is like diametrically opposed from the original Helldivers. It's a completely different style of game
That's
and all of
right.
that. But Helldivers 2 really caught on because you took on that person, first person, and you collaborate with other people and you spread democracy by wiping out these aliens. And then there's other tech involved now. But Sean Prescott over at PCGamer.com put the article together. They also mentioned in the deck statement that Ghosts of Tsushima is getting an anime. But this article is all about Helldivers 2 being kind of riffing off of what Fallout is doing. Fallout, it got
Right, it was a real hit on, I think, Amazon.
Yeah, I think it's a Prime thing. And it became a big hit, and now it's being negatively impacted by the fires in LA, but it will see the light of day because it's just awesome. Well, it says here the collaboration between Sony Productions and Sony Pictures doesn't have a release window, but if they're announcing it at CES, I'm hoping that it'll actually be made. The elephant in the room is that Helldivers 2 is already basically a video game take on Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers, which is a great film, whether you're a genius enough to detect that it's satire or not. Some people, it is satirical if you allow yourself to believe that it's satirical. Otherwise, it is nothing more than a hack and slash kind of movie, and you can turn your brain off and watch it. Satire requires you to buy into the ideological bent that there's a real world analog to this, and this is just satirically blown over the top. But sociologically, guess what? There is elements within military forces that are as zealot-like as Starship Troopers or Helldivers 2, you know. And so it isn't really satire. It's an element of the real world kicked up a notch.
It's more like hyperbolic.
Yes.
Whatever you want to say about the genre. But yeah.
And how do you know that? Because there are people that are writing on bombs, take that, Saddam, or, catch this or whatever. And we've been doing that since time immemorial. They used to put runes on spears and throw them at people, for crying out loud. Might as well say you can do that. But satire or not, it's a fun show, Starship Troopers, and there's multiples now of the Starship Troopers movies. Helldivers 2 is basically Starship Troopers in game form, and there's a Starship Troopers game.
Oh, that's interesting too. So I guess it's kind of like, has it already been done? But my suspicion is that the game is far enough from Starship Troopers that shouldn't be a concern.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a new generation of audience, right?
Yeah, and it's a new take, new world building. It's slightly different, but still the same. It's just enough off of it that you can't really protect it from duplication because all they're doing is killing robots and bugs. So the 1997 sci-fi film was based off of the novel by Robert A. Heinlein and follows the travails of some United Citizen Federation recruits as they annihilate droves of arachnids. Essentially the same thing that's in the same thing that's in Helldivers 2 is in Starship Troopers. They are arachnid-like bugs. It was pretty divisive at the time for seeming an endorsement of fascism and its gratuitous ultraviolence, but that perception had shifted pretty dramatically since, even though it still is, because people are pulled into the system, tested, seen as you're skilled at this or that or the other, and that's what you advance in. You're told what to do because you're a military conscript. You have to do service to actually have kids. To maintain citizenship, you have to do service, etc. So it's definitely fascist in nature. And Helldivers 2 takes that another step because you are wholeheartedly bringing democracy to the bugs by basically wiping them out. So it says they're not saying that Helldivers 2 film can't stand on its own. It appeals to me more than, say, Ghost of Tsushima anime, but it'll be interesting to see, I guess, if it can manage to be more than a retread. trying to compare the two basically because it's part of the same announcement is odd because Ghost of Tsushima is nothing like.
Yeah, but I feel like that's almost a knock at the Helldivers 2 film. Like, I'm really not interested in, for example, a Ghost of Tsushima anime.
But
So
I'll watch
yeah,
this.
maybe I'll watch this. But beyond that, I'm not so certain.
Yeah.
Is kind of the take I'm getting, but I don't know.
And PC Gamer and the author, it says Helldivers 2 was our favorite, the author's favorite for a multiplayer game of the year for 2024. And to be honest, it's probably got more potential for a film adaptation than any of the competition, especially Borderlands, which is similarly funny co-op shooter. But no, Borderlands was, I think, kind of sloppy. It joins an alarmingly long list of forthcoming game to film adaptations, which includes stuff like Minecraft starring Jack Black, Mortal Kombat 2 starring Carl Urban, and lots more besides, including Angry Birds 3, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and then they say, and much more on top of the fact that they said lots more. And before that, an alarmingly long list of forthcoming. So
I
I
mean,
guess
I
there's
hate
a
to
lot.
say it. If it's a gaming hit, it seems like the studios don't have much to lose by not trying to do film adaptations. But the problem is if they're too high budget, that's where I think they're setting themselves up
It'll
for
get
failure,
kicked.
and or they're too far removed from whatever made the original game appealing.
Yeah, and I don't know how Jack Black will amplify or people are going to go who kind of a thing for Minecraft, but
Yeah,
I
I
guess
don't
we'll
know.
see.
I mean, he seems like he's kind of one of those universally liked characters, at least in certain types of films. So maybe that'll work.
Yeah, him and Josh Gad remind me of each other.
Yes, exactly. I think they have a similar audience appeal.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going. The next article is over in the Continuity Report, the 15 best nerd movies of all time that are ranked according to Screen Rant. Nerd movies like geeks themselves have come a long way over the last few years. I mean, I grew up with Police Academy, and so
But
there
that
was
wouldn't
a
really be a nerd movie. That'd just be a slapstick movie.
Police Academy, Revenge of the Nerds, that era of movie. So nerd movies, Revenge of the Nerds is the epitome of nerd movie. Back in the day when you could construct a movie like that, I don't know. Maybe those times are back. We'll see. I have and I would have been categorized as a nerd back then. So when films about nerds and geeks started becoming popular in the 80s, we showed the characters as losers, misfits, outsiders who had to face bullies, and that's still the case today, who are often cool, popular kids. Since the 80s, the roles have stayed the same concerning their brains and status as misfits, but these characters have become more prestigious, important, as brains are more important than brawn in today's society. Yeah, if the nerd can survive the
Depends
social.
on where you're in society. But yeah, I would agree. I think there's been a shift
Sure.
toward nerds.
Yeah, but back in the 80s, we used to say the meek shall inherit the earth. So look
Right,
around,
that's
folks.
changed.
So, my problem with all of this is that it isn't just a shift it in the acceptance of nerds. Oh, look, they have Revenge of the Nerds are the two on that side. Well, anyway, the thing is that the rise of sociopathy has impacted this shift into nerds basically being able to take over. To survive, you had to turn off your empathy, sympathy, compassion, understanding of the human condition and go full on. And that has been amplified by wealth. That's just my calling out the fact that that's what I've witnessed over the last many decades now, I'd say. So, this article is by Sean S. How do you Lilos? Lealos?
Maybe Lelos, or
Lelos? I'm
I'm
going to
not
say
sure.
Lelos. Yeah, Sean S. Lelos. But George Jimenez.
I know. That's
Okay.
why I didn't want to weigh in on the pronunciation.
We'll just leave it alone. So I haven't even seen this. It's called Sydney White. This is number 15. I won't be able to go through all of these, but I'll jump from number 15 down a little bit. It's a retelling of Snow White with the Seven Dwarfs as nerds. I've never heard of this. Amanda
I'm
Bynes.
surprised this made the ranking.
Amanda Bynes plays Sydney White, a spin on Snow White. She heads to college and quickly becomes popular thanks to her likable personality and catches the eye of a popular frat guy named Tyler Prince. However, Tyler is dating Rachel Witchburn, and this young woman sets her sights on ruining Sydney and gets her kicked out of her sorority. And she ends up befriending the Seven Dorks, college outcasts. This is in 2007. What a trip. Might have to
Oh,
watch
it's
this.
almost 20 years ago.
I'd have to watch this again, or watch this, and then the 80s ones again, if you can even find them.
But this, interestingly, does kind of sound like the 80s genre ones. Like
Sure.
it could be, depending on how it's executed.
While the movie did go back to the geeks as outsiders trope, it was a nice callback to Revenge of the Nerds styled humor. So then House Bunny, this was actually a fun watch. A Playboy Bunny moves to a sorority of outcasts and basically pivots the sorority. Depressed, she decides to be a sorority house mother to live in their nice houses. However, the only house that accepts her is the Zeta Alpha Zeta house, which is kind of like the last house, based on the name Zeta Alpha Zeta. So, a house of socially awkward young women who take her in because they think that she'll attract boys to the house. There are problematic areas to the story, as the entire idea is the women in the sorority house believing they need a prettier woman to get the boys. But it's actually kind of a fun watch. I've seen that one. That one's from 2008. Then Napoleon Dynamite, which is a stalwart, like fan favorite kind of a thing. A moment in the life of a socially awkward high schooler. If you've never seen Napoleon Dynamite, depending on your mentality at the time, like you may be able to tolerate it, but I don't know. You may not. He doesn't necessarily come across as a likable person.
Oh, I see. And he's supposed to be the protagonist.
He is the protagonist. Yeah. Napoleon is a nerd who believes he is cooler than other kids in school, but he also faces bullying by the popular kids. However, despite his antisocial attitude and need to often lash out at those around him, he also has a big heart and sets out to help a fellow nerd in Pedro Sanchez in his desire to run for student council. So, yeah, it was a massive success, made for only $400,000, but made 46.1 million at the box office, thanks
Oh,
to
wow.
basically it went meme, and everybody went and watched it. So I'm having a hard time jumping to other movies because they're hitting this like nail on the head kind of a thing. War Games is a nerd movie.
Yeah, this is more what I thought might be in here. The first three kind of surprised me. I'm not saying they don't match, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't have identified those really. Maybe Napoleon Dynamite. I don't know much about that one.
In War Games, basically Matthew Broderick he's the Ferris Bueller on the nerd side, right? Like he, just like in Ferris Bueller, he was given a computer and he hacks and changes his grade, that kind of a thing. That's what happens in War Games.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, maybe he was a carryover nerd, but not
Yeah,
in Ferris Bueller. Maybe that's like the B story.
yeah. So a nerdy hacker almost starts World War III. In War Games, he hacks into the school, changes his grade, changes his female friends' grade, but they're not girlfriend, boyfriend kind of a thing. They're not in a relationship. They're just friends, which is like, that is the nerdy kind of relationship embodiment, typically that gets written about friend zoned kind of a thing, but they're actually more than that by the end of the movie. So Matthew Broderick stars as David Lightman, a young computer hacker who accidentally hacks into the United States military supercomputer called the Whopper. And every time I hear that, I think of the SNL skit where they're like, these lights are blinking out of order from Airplane 2. And in Airplane 2, the guy says, oh, well, make them blink in order. And it's actually the lights from Star Trek. There's like a blinking rotation thing.
Okay.
Anyway, deep cut if you're a nerd. Anyway, War Games is actually pretty awesome and had equipment that I and others would have used, like war driving, war dialing, where you would dial computer phone numbers, thousands upon thousands of computers, to see which computer would activate via a modem. And then it would record it. And then you could come back and try and gain access to the computer. Back in the day, yo.
I made a reference to War Games yesterday in RealityHacker.
Yeah, stop that. Not making references, that's fine. Yeah, everybody go back and watch RealityHacker from yesterday. Okay, Revenge of the Nerds, Big Hero 6, which actually has a nerdy brother and a very popular brother, a 40-year-old virgin, Spider-Man, which he's more, if you want to call him nerdy, he was just, well, I don't know. He's very charismatic. Everybody really liked him. But I guess, I suppose it's because he was more engaged in science.
Right. I mean, I guess I can see that, but I don't think most people would identify Spider-Man in this
cool
area. Yeah.
Yeah. He wasn't cool as Peter Parker. He was cool as Spider.
Right. I guess that's the same for many Marvel characters.
Yep. Then Weird Science. All of these are absolutely spot on so far, except for the ones that I haven't seen and I can't place them there. Booksmart, two nerdy girls decide to have fun and are at the end of high school. On the end of high school? It's a weird turn of phrase. Anyway, they have different reasons for wanting to go wild at a year-end graduation party. I guess they're studious is what it says. Too studious and by-the-book high school seniors. They want to have a good time before they move on to college to at least have the experience. All right. Ghostbusters, I don't think is nerdy. They're scientists.
Well, wait a second. There's definitely some nerdy main characters.
See, I get it, but when I think of nerd, I don't think of grown-ass men. Nerds.
I think probably all four of the main male leads could fit into that characterization.
Maybe if they were younger, but I don't see middle-aged men as being nerdy.
It's not like War Games or something.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, if you go back,
like
all of them...
but didn't grow up, right?
Yeah. 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 Failure to launch kind of a thing. The 40-year-old virgin, again, so first off, I haven't seen it, so I can't place it. But I don't see a middle-aged man as being a nerd. I just think that they're a 40-year-old man that didn't launch, that kind of a thing. So then The Social Network, a nerd becomes a rich man thanks to his brains, but The Social Network is a riff off of Facebook, for crying out loud.
It talks about Zuckerberg in the description.
Yeah, it is Facebook. So if he's considered a nerd, then I don't know what's considered a nerd nowadays. Then the Goonies, yep, that actually lands in the nerd spectrum because they're basically social outcasts that are trying to save. And this is, I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, these are movies though. So, and we're running really late, by the way. So Back to the Future. And then number 1 is Superbad. written by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg.
You know what was completely missing from this ranking
Huh.
was Real Genius,
Oh, yeah, Real
which
Genius.
every character in that is at least on the protagonist side
Yep.
would have
The,
qualified. Even some on the antagonist side would have.
yeah. All of them are. Although, can you hammer a 6-inch spike through a 2x4? I don't know. I don't know if he counts as a nerd because of how that sentence pops up, so to speak. Okay, let's keep moving. Go and check out that article. It's a lot of fun. And then watch all of those movies. We have to have movie night. We really do for the continuity report. Once a week, watch a movie. Start doing all of the nerd movies. Might as well. Anyway, the next article is over in the continuity report. James Mangold is setting his Star Wars a long, long time ago to avoid tangled lore. So between films, shows, TV game or video games, comics, probably a napkin or two sitting around George Lucas's estate, the Star Wars canon has gotten so complicated that it's nearly impossible to tell an original story from it says without stumbling on some sort of tripwire. James Mangold.
Well, I was going to say there was a separate article in Hometown this week where it talked about like multiple times that they'd had to retcon in Star Wars. So I think that's kind of overlapping with this idea from this article.
Yeah. So and that's why I said it's a longer time ago, but nearer to our current timeline in a galaxy still far away. But anyway, Mangold's Star Wars prequel will take place 25,000 years before any of the other films. Emma Keats over at AV Club put the article together, and it says the Star Wars movie would be taking place 25,000 years before any known Star Wars movies take place.
I think that's kind of smart. You know why? They can keep making movies from that point forward and they'll never run into the
Yeah,
current batch.
particularly if they tight knit them, you know. The complete unknown director told MovieWeb of his film working title Dawn of the Jedi. Now that's dangerous because it's setting the precedent for the canon of how the Jedi came into existence. It's an area and a playground that they've always wanted to explore and that they were inspired by as a teenager. They're not interested in being handcuffed by so much lore at this point that it's almost immovable and you can't please anybody. But you're going to piss off everybody if your canon doesn't
Oh,
knit
yeah.
into. So can you imagine? You can set the horrible trend by saying that this is how the Jedi were formed, only to be retconned out with a later movie
Yeah, that's
earlier
true.
to the 25,000 year later date.
Right, right.
So it's the same strategy that spin-offs like House of the Dragon and Dune Prophecy have utilized in recent years, though Mangold's film is journeying a much longer time ago. So they went back about 200 or 10,000 years from their original timelines, respectively. So House of the Dragon and Dune Prophecy. So the fashion, architecture, speech pattern should be different from the original properties. Culture doesn't stay the same over that many decades, much less centuries. So yeah, I agree.
This is going to be interesting to see how it's received by Star Wars fans.
Pissing off everybody, one retcon at a time. Let's keep moving. The next article is over in the continuity report, the 54 best movies under 90 minutes. I will not be able to go through this. Just saying. This is a show that could span a week.
Okay, but what's one of the takeaways here?
Oh,
Some movies are just too long.
too long. Yeah.
Like, this is a good list to look at if you don't want to devote your entire day to a single movie.
Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul, now on Netflix, was added specifically and earmarked at the top of this
Uh-huh.
series. Jada Wan, Kyle Buchanan, Nate Jones, Kevin Lincoln. How is that? Is that Billy Ebery? I guess. I don't know. Bilge. And Allison Wilmore all put effort into this article over at vulture.com.
I wonder if they almost served as a panel or something to figure this out, or they each took different sections, because this is a lot of movies to cover.
Yeah. The movies below are listed by length, starting with the shortest. So Dumbo, it's 64 minutes. I will not be able to go through all of these. Frankenstein, Pickpocket, The Nightmare Before
Okay, wait.
Christmas.
But we've talked about Nightmare Before Christmas specifically, and that's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it. And go.
Okay. Primer, which is a time travel movie, which is awesome. It took $7,000 to make, but it is a viral smash hit.
Oh, wow. That makes Napoleon Dynamite pale in comparison, considering the budget.
Yep. Um, and it was free for a while, actually. But now I think you can buy it. So Shiva Baby, I don't know. Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul is only 79 minutes. But I won't be able to go through all of these. Rope is really good. Run Lola Run is really good. Let's see. Toy Story, A Night at the Roxbury. I didn't like, only because I found it kind of depressing. This is Spinal Tap is a mockumentary. They call this rockumentary. Speakers may go to 11, but the film's runtime doesn't. It's actually a mockumentary about the rock, heavy metal kind of space. Blackfish, Ghost in the Shell is awesome. Borat, Black Dynamite is actually a fun watch. If you've ever wondered how blaxploitation cinema looks from the vantage point of the present, Black Dynamite is your answer. Definitely go and check it out. It's one of those movies where you go, how did this get made kind of thing, which I think they actually did that. They actually did that movie.
Okay, that's another podcast.
Another podcast, yeah, called How Did This Get Made? Chronicle. If this is what I thought it was Chronicle I thought was about an alien, but anyway, Pi, Slow West. I won't be able to go through all of these. I'm sorry. There's just so many, but I thought it was interesting to highlight the fact that there are movies that are going all the way back to the late 20s. Airplane is in here from 1980. It's 88 minutes. Absolute blast. It actually was probably a compass for my entire life.
Fantastic Mr. Fox also went by. You don't have to scroll back up.
Gotcha. Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, which is kind of this viral hit. Rashomon, Welcome to the Dollhouse, Zombieland, Eraserhead. That is a cult hit. So on and so forth.
The Lion King, Stand By Me. It's interesting to see some of these go by and they're like award winners. So
yeah,
movie makers, you don't have to make an epic film.
Right. You just have to have tight writing and be passionate about it and not crazy about it. Anyway, that's it. There's 54 movies that are under 90 minutes. I think that's what it said. But there's more in here. I don't know if there's comments or what. Oh, no, it's just a really... I thought that there was more, but the way that it scrolled, it made it seem like it was longer. Anyway, that's it. We're done. So we are going to rewind the film, and that'll bring us back to the continuity report over at ohmtown.com. Go over there and become a citizen. I am Mayor Watt saying, see you later. We're going to reset and start the 3 shows for Sunday. See you in a little bit. You want to say bye?
Bye, hometown citizens. Thanks for joining us for the continuity report.
Boop.